got a lot on your mind. We'll put a lot on your table. Introducing the new Zax Family Packs at Zaxby's. Get your choice of 20 chicken fingers or 30 boneless wings. Plus crinkle fries, Texas toast, and 4 dipping sauces. It's enough to feed a family of 4, and it's only $24.99. So stop by your neighborhood Zaxby's drive-thru or order ahead on the Zaxby's app. When your whole crew is hungry, we've got the answer. The new Zax Family Packs for just $24.99. Only at Zaxby's.
From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, proudly presented by Zaxby's. Indescribably good. Get you some Zaxby's. I had the chicken finger dinner for Sunday. It treated me well. I'm ready to rock, and I have to be because we got a great show for you folks today. Quick reminder, though, obviously, if you're listening to this on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe. It's totally free. But the good stuff lies over on warchant.com. Use the promo code WARCHANT30 for 30 days of access, and you can get some great insight, especially from our own Ira Shofel. He's joining us. It's really not a surprise. You probably see it in the item description. I'm going to bring you in before I bring in Corey because that's just the way it rolls right now. Ira, how you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you doing, man?
Good, good. How was it being a birthday dad this past weekend, man? The big 2-0 for one of your girls, huh?
Yeah, my oldest had her 20th birthday, which is kind of surreal. And it's funny. I texted a couple of friends to let them know, and one of them's like, "Dude, there's no way your daughter's 20 years old." But sure enough, she is. So yeah, it was a good time. We had a lot of fun. It's cool that they're all, two of them are, one's 17 and one's 20 now, so they're adults. Like they're really like basically adults, and the dynamics are much different now than the old days of going to Chuck E. Cheese.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for being here with us, and we'll bring in Corey, who, just absolute champion bloodlines pumping there over in Buford, Georgia. His son Brady Clark now, I think, has been in more championship games than actual Tom Brady just this summer alone. How are things with your son, your brood?
Good, buddy. He also recorded a birthday message for Ira's daughter.
Oh, so, he did.
He had a busy weekend. They finally won one, so that was good. That was good for them. Nice. Good for their spirits to close out the summer with a dub.
Is there how many? I don't want to say participation trophies, but how many trophies does Brady have in the house? Is there like a room dedicated, like a shrine to Brady's greatness?
They get rings. They don't get trophies. So he's got a bunch of silver, second place rings. And then he finally got himself a championship ring today. So no, it's not a shrine because rings aren't that big. So he must have 8 rings or 12 rings. I don't know. He just throws them on the kitchen table when he gets in.
All right. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars, Brady.
Right. Aslan, real quick. So that message that Corey and Brady recorded for Molly's birthday, Corey asked Brady to name a memory, like a fun memory for Molly, because when Brady was real little, Kim, my wife, used to actually kind of watch Brady a lot. And so he was around the girls all the time when he was really young. But, sometimes they wonder how much Brady really remembers them. And in the thing, Corey asked for a favorite memory. And Brady said, well, when I asked Molly what her favorite book from Harry Potter was, which was her favorite Harry Potter book, and she told him and he remembered it. So when we watched the video, she was just shocked. She could not believe he remembered. She didn't even remember telling him that. She was shocked that he remembered it. And then he also told her to make sure to not get the coronavirus. So that was his other advice. Birthday wish. Yeah.
Did he get it right, Ira? Did he have the right book?
Yeah, for sure. She just didn't really remember the interaction, but yeah.
He also knows where Scottie Pippen went to college and
he does
things like that. Weird things stay in that coconut of his.
The Clark family, that's how they roll.
That's right.
I have no happy father memories to share with anybody, so let's just get on with the show then.
Okay, great.
Ira unveiled the first, I guess, of what is going to, rumor is, I guess, a 7-part series with some really great inside access exclusive to warchant.com subscribers. Again, use that promo code WARCHANT30.
Part 1 7 parts?
It is, man. It is. I'm long-winded. I just feel like we invested the time to talk to, and they invested the time to talk to us. The second one will be is already up on the site by the time people hear this, unless Aslan posts it, right after we're done recording. But it should be up soon. And then The third part will be up in the next day or so. And then I'm going to try to have them done in the next week because I'd like to have them all done before we know whether or not there's going to be college football. I feel like I need to beat that.
Smart.
That's my deadline. I need to get these all before we know whether or not we're actually playing college football.
Well, tell them what you did. Remind people what you did, because I interrupted you, and I apologize for that. I won't ever apologize to you again, but I will this one time.
So yeah, I mean, like back in when everything got shut down in mid-March, first we were all just kind of wondering what was going to happen, and how long everything was going to be shut down. And then after about a week or two, I realized, okay, we all realized that this was going to go on much longer than we originally thought, and so I was just thinking about the idea that FSU's Mike Norvell and this coaching staff, and what a crazy situation they've kind of stepped into here, taking over this job. They barely got to recruit. They only had 3 spring practices. First year at a Power 5 program, trying to rebuild Florida State from a program that's really fallen off the last couple of years, but one of the biggest names in college football. All of these things kind of going on at the same time, and so obviously every coaching staff has to deal with the pandemic and the shutdown and all this. But I felt like the pressure was a little bit more unique for Mike Norvell, so that's what I pitched to Mike Norvell through FSU Sports Information staff at first. Then I got to speak to Coach Norvell and kind of pitched the idea, and he was open to it. The idea of kind of chronicling everything that happens over those few months, and so that's what I did. So basically, over from April through June till late June, I was interviewing. I interviewed Coach Norvell a couple times. I interviewed Bruce Warwick, the chief of staff, 3 times. I interviewed several assistant coaches, staff members, athletic trainers, people from the recruiting coordinators, up and down the list, just to kind of get an idea of what all they were doing behind the scenes to keep the program running, and ended up, kind of honing in on these stories. The second story, which already got posted, is about basically how do you install an offense over Zoom, and how all the different things all the different processes they tried, approaches they took, and what that was like. And then the third part, which I think will probably be the best part in the whole thing, I think, will be the one that the third part, which will be kind of about Mike Norvell and how he led throughout the whole crisis, I guess.
It's what's being dubbed the most daunting offseason in college football history, I hear.
It's somebody responded on the tribal council, like, hey, 1942 says hello. And I get it. And count. I thought
doesn't count.
That's, I thought about that, but I'm also like, this is a whole different sport, and obviously, the pressure and the money and everything that's at stake now is so completely different. But yeah, I think this off season's got to be the toughest for all of college football. And then I think when you look at Florida State, I just think it's magnified for all those reasons. The guy Mike Norvell replaced got fired in 21 games. He's Norvell's the 3rd coach now in just a few years. You look at taking over a team that's talented but hasn't been coached well in a long time. The expectations are to enact change quickly, and I just think, like, when you take a job like this and you look at the roster and you think of all the things you want to get done, and you're all fired up, and the first 2 months go so well, and by all accounts, those first two and a half months were going so well, and then to have just somebody just come in and turn out the lights and say, we'll be back in 3.5 months and see how you do then. It's just it's remarkable. So we'll see. I was impressed by how they handled it, but I guess we'll really see if and when they play football.
I don't want to say advantage, because there's really no good way you can spin this whole ordeal, Ira, but in talking to them, and in the second part of your series here, you're talking about obviously trying to instruct the players via Zoom. Just in getting to know these coaches that much more through all these conversations, literally hours of conversations that you've had with them over the past few months. Do you at least feel that this program is probably in a better place than some of the other teams are competing with, just in terms of the instruction and the knowledge and the ability for them to accurately and properly, I guess, communicate expectations to these players?
I think there's a good chance. I haven't been obviously had access to find out what's going into other programs, but I do think I've been impressed. I just think that I've been around a lot of coaches. I've been around a lot of college football coaches, Florida State and some other programs. And I just think, and you guys have talked about it, and we've talked about it through the last 7-8 months, that these are really sharp guys, and I think they're very thoughtful. And what was interesting was, some of the, and I think people will see throughout these stories that if you read the quotes, you'll really see how thoughtful they are. For example, Kenny Dillingham was like, when I was talking to him about how difficult this situation was, and he's like, yeah, man, it's tough, but imagine if this happened 20 years ago. Like, then it would be really tough. Like, at least we have this technology, at least we can Zoom, at least we can, we've got, Exos Thundercloud or whatever it is he called it. I mean, just, they've got access to all of these tools. And then the combination of that with, I think, the structure of, Mike Norvell, his ability to see the need of kind of having a sophisticated approach, which, a lot of us liked about Jimbo Fisher's staff. Mark Robinson, who was Jimbo's director of operations, was huge. I mean, he was just did a tremendous job of keeping everything running on time and organized. And that was one of the areas where Florida State really struggled the last couple of years. Well, Bruce Warwick is I think is easily as good at Mark Robinson, maybe even better about that type of stuff. Plus, he brought in his operations guy from Memphis, Jeff Cupper, who I really was impressed with. And some of his stuff will be in the Mike Norvell feature. I really came away very impressed with him. And so there's the structure, I think, is really important. Then on top of that, I think the fact that you don't get the sense that there's big egos. Like I think sometimes when coaches try to coach or teach and it's not working or the kids aren't getting it, a lot of times the inclination is to kind of blame the players. And I really felt like a lot of times when there were issues where maybe things weren't getting across or they weren't happy with certain things, the coaches, would look at themselves and try to figure out what they could do better. But at the same time, one other little thing that I thought was impressive, and it's in the second story, is, when they started having these Zoom meetings, the players at first would just kind of show up. Like they would just turn on their laptop or turn on their iPad and just show up for the Zoom meeting and like just kind of be slumped back in their chair or kind of, hey, I'm at home, I'm chilling out. Like, and they were right off the bat, they're like, no, this is a work meeting. This is just like we're back in the Moore Athletic Center. Sit up. No earrings, no hoodies, like all their policies about kind of showing up and being professional, attention to detail. Have a pencil, have a piece of paper, have something to write with. That was kind of, they did a good job of really kind of carrying over those expectations to this virtual format, which I think was probably pretty difficult. And it's something I think some of us might overlook, but I think that it was important to the players to see that.
Ira, did this remind you of any of the long features you did with Jimbo and his staff, where he'd let you kind of embed with the program for like 2 or 3 months and just whatever you needed, you'd get? Same with Willie, really. Did it remind you of any of those projects you worked on for the last 10 years or so?
Not exactly. Not exactly. Yeah, and that was, honestly, I think that Coach Norvell told, the media. I mean, we were all sitting there and that he wanted to he wanted the program to be open. He wanted to let people know what was really happening. And it was nice that he stood up to that. I mean, this was unusual because, and when I made the request, I kind of wasn't, it wasn't like I expected them to say to do it. Because, one of the issues is, like Warchant covers the team, like we cover the team day to day. And so like, for example, when at the very beginning of the COVID testing, like, I talked to Jake File, the head athletic trainer, director of sports medicine, or associate director of sports medicine, about that whole testing process. But like, I wasn't going to turn around and write about it that day, like it's going to be in kind of the piece that's about the race to June 1st. I'm doing a whole piece on kind of how they were ready to go on June 1st. And, and that was kind of one of the things I told them from the beginning. It's like, look, I'm not going to try to break any news along the way, little details here or there, because I want to tell this, the real story at the end of the process. So, no, I really appreciate, Norvell and FSU's the entire staff, sports information staff, and all the coaches. I mean, they just all were, like you said, I mean, they were just really open and willing to talk, which was a little bit different than probably what we've dealt with here in a long time.
Ira, it's been several months, obviously, all these interviews have been happening with you and the coaching staff. I mean, would you say they've changed at all? I mean, has the tone or the urgency? I mean, I just can't imagine that, they've been able to stay even keel. I mean, maybe they have. I mean, just with all the news and how fluid this whole situation has been, I mean, have you seen any sort of change just in terms of the way they've approached things, or anything kind of catch you by surprise just in terms of the way they've been able to handle it, I guess, kind of emotionally, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I think the two, I think there's like different, it's not across the board. It's not like one way across the board. I mean, I think one thing overriding, I would say, is that, the philosophy that from the coaches is what any of us would probably do in that situation. I'm sure what other coaches at other schools is doing is like the only mindset they can have is that they're going to get to play. And so, because if they get to play, they want to be as prepared as possible. So they've kind of had to go with that mindset from, and everything they do, like, let's maximize this time so that we can play. On the other side of that, though, is, there have been challenges. And I think the one place where you could see where I think the challenges are frustrating, I'd say two areas where the challenges are frustrating and they're doing everything they can, but you can kind of tell that they're not happy. There's not really anything they can do about it. One is in recruiting, they just not being able to get kids on campus. They only had about 10 or 12 days that they were able to get kids on campus. They got a lot of them on campus, but man, they had kids coming for official visits for the spring game. They had kids coming a ton of kids coming for visits in March and April. They had, their camps. Corey was with us when we sat down and talked to Mike Norvell, and the three of us were sitting there when Mike Norvell talked about, his camps at Memphis and how important that time was, and how important those camps were to them identifying players. And, they didn't get to have camps. So it's just been like one thing after another in recruiting. So they haven't been able to get kids on campus. They haven't been able to get kids to see how they coach. They haven't been able to evaluate the players the way they'd like to. So I think that's one that they're just kind of doing the best job they can, but I know they're frustrated. At the same time, you could say, well, that's happening to everybody. But the difference is recruiting is done so far in advance now that most of these other schools were doing this on these 2021 kids last year, and Florida State's coaching staff got in late. Now that's why they've been recruiting some kids they recruited previously. A lot of kids from Texas, where Chris Thompson was, and some different guys from different areas, not just Florida. But that's one challenge. And the other one, I think, I talked about it some in the first article, and I'll come back to it in the last article, but it's how do you simulate all the things you get on the field in spring practice without having a spring practice? And, so how do you get players to be, how do you evaluate them, where they need to be lined up, what they do well, what they don't do well. And then also, learning about them as competitors, bringing them together, that esprit de corps, all those things that you need to be on the field together, to go through all those struggles together. How do you manufacture that in just a couple weeks of the beginning of preseason practice to get ready for a season? And I think that's one where I will say this, when you listen to Mike Norvell talk, and then when you hear the coaches talk, it's clear he's impressed upon them that this is on them. The situation stinks, but when it comes to how they evaluate players and how they decide where to use them, they've got to figure out and do everything they can possibly in the first week or 2 weeks of preseason to make those decisions as quickly as possible to put things in place so that they can get everything the way they need to get it. He's not just saying, oh, well, we didn't have a spring. You could tell by some comments he made, and then also comments I've heard from some of the assistant coaches, that, there's not going to be excuses. They have to figure out a way to get that done.
Ira, did Norvell tell you who the quarterback is going to be?
Yeah, he did, but you're going to have to read the sixth part, I think.
That's number 6. And also, I was going to ask, I don't know how deep into the weeds you got with them, or if how much you're going to write about it specifically. But how do they evaluate kids right now? Were you able to glean like what they can do, especially for kids they haven't seen at all? Is it just like game film from their sophomore years?
Man, it's a lot of film. It's a lot of calling around, talking to coaches, talking to coaches that they know that played against them, that they played for. Just trying to get a lot of opinions. But really, that's kind of I think the Chris Thompson, the tight ends coach, just had some really good comments along those lines. And one of the pieces is just about recruiting, and he just said, look, man, he's like, I need to. He just said, like, you want to be on the field and watch them practice. Like, you want to see. He's got this great quote, I think I mentioned to you guys off the air before, was, he talks about the transfer of power, that when one guy goes up against another guy on a football field, there's a transfer of power, and they want to see that. Like, they want to see who transfers their power on the other guy. And you can't do that from film necessarily, not the same way. And so, I think that's a frustrating thing. And then the other thing was, he said, like, Chris Thompson made another good point. He's like, when you go to a school, I can call this high school. I can call Lincoln High School and talk to one of the academic advisors and say, okay, what's Joe Smith like? And they'll tell me. But when I'm actually there on campus and I pass like a counselor in the hallway and I say, hey, tell me about Joe Smith. He's like, I can tell from the way they talk, like their expressions, their facial expressions, their body language. Do they really love that kid? Or is it a kid that they're just going to say nice things about? Like, nobody's going to run that kid down, but you can get a feel for how much do they really love this kid. And that's something that kind of, gets filed away. There's not a box to check or anything, but it's just kind of part of that process. So I think it's just, they're going to do the best they can, but I feel like they feel like a lot of these evaluations are going to be kind of incomplete.
In that same breath, though, first off, did you say spear de corps earlier? Ira, or did you drop some like French word on us?
Esprit de corps, buddy. I don't think it's that French, Italian. I don't know. It's something.
Ira, this isn't the show for that.
Sorry, my bad.
Right,
just understand, we don't do that here.
But just in terms of you talking about evaluation, I don't know if you were. I think Corey's question was more along the lines of recruiting. I don't know if it sounded like your answer was kind of more along the lines of recruiting. But there's a lot of players. There's a lot of players on this team that they wanted to get a look at in spring football to kind of see where they were going to line up. I mean, I guess does the same apply when they're, are they still going to try to figure out what they want to do with Travis Jay for the first few days of, padded practices, or is that even having to be kind of expedited and just, kind of done on the fly?
My bad. Yeah. And that is, it's a huge issue as well. They're still going to try to do what they were hoping to do. But yeah, I mean, it's all going to have to be condensed into that time period. And it's not just position changes. I think he said that Adam Fuller said there were 3 or 4 guys that, that they wanted to evaluate for position changes on defense, but there's a lot of guys that it's a question of like, how do they perform those roles? Like, are they better in certain situations? Do they need to play more off man? Do they need to be press man or whatever? What their skills are, and then try to put that piece that puzzle together. Again, I think that there are some coaching staffs that, kind of, this is what I want, and I'm going to plug you into that hole, and you're going to do that job as best you can. That's not what their approach is. I mean, their approach is to try to really tailor everything on both sides of the ball to individual skills and talents. And, not being able to see all that is you get the feeling that they feel like they're going into preseason a little bit with a blindfold. So, they have done some things. I mean, they've done things, and it's talked about in the second piece, to really get a handle on the mental stuff. And I think this is the one area where I'd say they really feel like it's almost like a positive. Then the one area where they feel like they've gotten a net positive in all this is from the mental standpoint. They've gotten to spend so much time in these Zoom calls and meetings, going over different, every assignment, every check. They've actually done like virtual walkthroughs where the players will all be at their houses or wherever they're, at home with their computers, and they're like standing up, like they're running, like it's a walkthrough in practice. Yeah. And then they'll call out the play, and each player has to be able to say what exactly his assignment is, what keys he's got to read, all that stuff. Like it's a real walkthrough on the field, but it's all virtually. So, I mean, they've done so many different things to maximize the mental aspect of it that I think that gives them some insight. There's certain positions where they got to be able to process information quickly. They've got to know exactly what to do or read things before they happen. So from that standpoint, I think they'll have some insight, but the physical side, I don't think there's any way to figure it out until they really get into preseason. Now they do have some of this. They are having some workouts right now, and they'll keep having some over the next 4 weeks going into camp. But it's still not the same as actually like real padded practice.
I'm going to let him go, Corey. You got anything else for him?
No, I can't wait to see you again, Ira. I can't wait to play tennis with you and Aslan and Stephanie. I assume
in that order.
I'm coming back to Tallahassee this weekend. I assume it's pretty cool in Tallahassee right now. I haven't checked the temperatures, but are the temperatures plummeting a little bit, like high 70s?
I did break out a sweater today for the first time. So
good. Well, it's July, so it's definitely sweater weather in Tallahassee. But yeah, we're down for a little tennis this weekend when Daddy gets back to town.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'll take the rest of the show off the air. Okay.
All right, man. Thanks, Ira. Again, check out his stuff, warchant.com. Use promo code warchant30. Thank you, Ira.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, Corey. So the thing that sticks out in my mind, I guess, like the big picture thing, is that I think I got off to a bad start with so many of our loyal, good-hearted, fervent fans because of the way that I talked about Jimbo and the way I kind of graded Willie on maybe not giving him a fair enough curve. I remember people were like, what do you expect from him? It's his first season. Get off of his back. It's all your boy Jimbo's fault. And I was like, man, he had 15 spring practices. He took this team to Sarasota, or took them to IMG in Bradenton, had them there for, a week or whatever, however many practices they ran there, brought them back to Tallahassee. They had full use of their gym. They had all these, preseason practices. And then that's what we saw against Virginia Tech, and then what we saw against Samford, and what we saw against Syracuse. And what do you expect? Just in hearing Ira talk about this, and as optimistic as we want to be, I guess everybody's going through this at least. With Willie, he kind of might have been the only person dealing with the turnaround and the turnover and the culture problems. Everybody's dealing with this now. But man, our guy's got 6 weeks. He's got 6 weeks to put a product on the field if we start on time. I can't even wrap my head around that. Can you?
Well, I hope I can. I hope I get to wrap my head around that and watch college football in 6 weeks. That would be something, or in 9 weeks or 12 weeks. Whenever we're going to do it, let's do it. But yeah, when I've talked to Ira a little bit about this project, and it just seems, again, this guy's I don't know. I can't say I know a ton of high-level college football coaches, but I don't know that this guy's at normal in a good way. I think I don't know if he's a tough boss, but I think he's a boss that expects a lot of his coaches, and that's a good thing, a really good thing. And I think he's got good coaches, which I can't say for the last guy. I don't think Willie put together a very good staff. I know I'm going on a limb with that. I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback because we saw such great results with that staff. That was just not a good coaching staff. Not in some of the personnel, not in the way it meshed, just none of it was very good. You just get the impression every time we talk to this guy or talk about this guy or read a story from Ira about him, I get more and more impressed and excited for what this could potentially be. But again, the excitement is a little bit dampened because there's a pandemic. So I get it. I get that. I think it's not great, obviously, for your first year as a head coach to be in the middle of a pandemic where you can't have a spring practice. But I do think that Florida State has an advantage that they got him for this. I think he's handling this, or will handle this, better than most. It just seems like this is kind of right up his alley. Type A personality, think of everything under the sun, get good coaches, trust them, be accountable, make your players accountable, be on them all the time. I just think this guy was kind of maybe built for this. I know nobody's really built for a pandemic, but you know what I mean, Aslan. It's late.
It is.
Come on, give me a break.
Well, again, we've pointed this out. I don't know if irony is the right word here, but Norvell's in the same boat as Willie too, because I mean, if you believe what was reported, I mean, I think even we report on warchant.com, it seemed like, option, 1A, at least at defense, was probably Georgia's linebacker coach, Dan Lanning, who Mike Norvell had a pre-existing working relationship with, I think, at Memphis. And on the offensive side of things, he wanted to bring his offensive line coach, Satterfield. I've just got too much love for Satterfield, or Silverfield, I think. I apologize. You know me, my boy in Louisville, got a crush on him. It's kind of weird. Yep. I won't be able to see him. No ACC virtual kickoff.
Dude lost to Willie Taggart, and you got a crush on him.
Well,
That's all I'm saying.
Give him some time. But anyhow, I mean, Norvell's in the same boat too, where like he had his, plan A ready to roll. So like, not only does he not get, again, it was reported by several people that those were kind of maybe his first option, at least 1A. I mean, he didn't go down to 2 and 3 and that kind of stuff. But, I mean, he's even got those guys with him now here, and he seems to kind of be making the best out of the situation. And, would I rather have, 6 weeks of Mike Norvell or 6 months of Willie Taggart to get a team ready? Call me crazy. I might want to see what Mike Norvell's up to with 6 weeks to get prepared. So, but it's just
and again, though, it's not like it's like, hey, all of a sudden there's a season. He has been preparing every day for this. But as Ira alluded to, there's only so much you can do until you see them on a football field in front of you, running, doing football things to make decisions on who you can count on, who you depth chart, all that stuff. But I do think that he's as prepared as you could possibly be right now for what we're going to see, what we hopefully get to see in August and then into September.
All right.
But yeah, nobody gets their first choices anymore. Alabama probably gets their first choice when but all their assistants leave all the time. So I think it was he handled his not getting his first or second choice at a couple of position coach assistant spots pretty well when you look at who he quote unquote settled on.
Oh yeah, and I wasn't trying to denigrate at all Kenny Dillingham and Adam Fuller. It's just kind of the odd sort of happenstance that's going on right now because. It's just, again, it's crazy. I just can't believe like they've got 6 weeks to get ready for all this. But I guess, the good news is, again, like if it all goes off on time, which, who knows, you got West Virginia, which is a worthy adversary. If you go to all conference slate, you're not guaranteed to start off with NC State. But if I had to pick, if I had my druthers about me, NC State's probably one of the teams I wouldn't mind opening with. So, there's a little bit of that sort of silver lining, too. So that's that. Hey, did you see this, the latest? It's going to happen, I guess, later this week where I don't know if it's the commissioners or the people from the NCAA are going to go in front of the Senate to talk about the name, image, and likeness, which we like so much. So,
I don't think I did.
All right. Well, I'll try to talk about some of it on the fly. I guess one of the main things here is that players can't start getting paid until their second semester. Kind of wish they would do like the second year. Like, do you think that's already off to a bad start when you hear that the players can't start making money until their second semester?
What's the thinking behind that? Why is that?
Recruiting enticements. I guess, you make them at least wait 6 months if you're going to guarantee them money.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you make them wait a year, right? If they sign in February, they can't get it till January. So you're talking about 11 months they have to wait.
Well,
right?
I guess that's, yeah. Well, it says the deals are delayed until an athlete's second semester in college. So I guess it depends on when you do enroll. I was wondering if this was going to hurt basketball because, those guys, I mean, some of them literally, like your one and dones, like Zion, he enrolls in August, like shows up to Duke in August and then is gone in March. But you're still going into a second semester, obviously.
Yeah, and I don't think I certainly don't think at a place like Florida State you're talking about a ton of money for name, image, and likeness for a Florida State basketball player necessarily. And the guys like that, like the Jonathan Isaacs, the Scotty Barnes, what they're going to be as soon as the season's over, they're going to be signing with the. How would that even work? Like their second semester, they're still in the middle of the season. You know what I mean? Like Scotty Barnes comes to school in August. Well, his second semester starts in January, right?
Yeah, it's like you're in the teeth of the.
So
the
he's in the middle of the
season.
conference. He's in the middle of the conference season. So that's when he can start getting paid. So,
Well, stick around, Scotty. You don't no rush to leave. You got that Kraft Nissan money coming to you.
well, yeah, but he wouldn't, or even the Zaxby's money and the Warchant money. It's all coming, Scotty. Especially if you come back for that sophomore year. But yeah, I mean, I think this is all just. I don't even want to call it a Band-Aid because that's the wrong implication. It's just semantics. Like they're going to get paid. You can't tell me that if a kid is choosing between Georgia and UCLA, and then some big, huge UCLA booster says, "Hey, man, I'm going to give you $250,000 to appear for my car dealership," and the guy's like, "What? Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, but you have to wait until your second semester." Well, screw you, dude. I'm going to Athens. That's not happening. I mean, I just think that's I don't quite understand that that's really something they need to argue. I mean, I guess I get the rule, but I mean, I don't know that that's going to affect anything at all. Pay them when they get to campus.
Sheesh.
I want to get you and I and Gene and Ira are all going to appear in a Warchant commercial with the number one offensive tackle prospect in the country when he signs with Florida State. We have to figure out what the going rate is for that. But I'm thinking it's probably, what do you think, $300-$400?
At least, yeah. I mean, that'll win it for sure. That's yeah. Let pipe lock.
Good.
Come
All
on
right,
down.
sweet.
I guess one of the other concerns I think a lot of people had was I think California was kind of at the forefront of this in terms of getting their statewide sort of bill pushed through, and I think Ron DeSantis and Florida weren't too far behind. Part of it too is the pitch they're going to make in front of the Senate obviously is to have a national uniform sort of set of rules. That way, again, certain states aren't going to seem more advantageous to players than others. The second one I thought was kind of interesting is that, quote, the athletes is going to prevent them from entering into endorsement agreements that, quote, violate university standards or that conflict with institutional sponsorship agreements. So feels like Gatorade money is not on the board for Tamorrion Terry or Marvin Wilson, I would think.
That seems like 100% accurate. And then what was the first part of that you said?
University standards that conflict.
So they can't strip clubs or
not at Liberty, not at Liberty University, not at Notre Dame. Notre Dame you can't probably endorse like Trojan condoms or anything,
But at Florida State you could probably do Hooters, right?
Yeah, why not?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be it's not going to be the Wild West necessarily, but it's going to be really bizarrely managed, and there's going to be so many lines that are pushed and jumped over. There's a lot of gray area, but it's going to be cool to watch. I'm actually kind of excited about it, just to see. I mean, there's nothing better than just a goofy local commercial. Just nothing like the Jimbo ones where he was looking at jewelry. Just so goofy. And I'm talking about after, and I'm certainly not poking fun at anybody's marital status, but he had the commercial. You weren't in town yet, but he had the commercials with the local jeweler when it was him and Candy looking at jewelry. And then obviously that happened. The divorce happened, and then it was just Jimbo in a jewelry store.
Just a bachelor.
Yeah, just solo rolling through a jewelry store.
That's what we do.
Which was a little odd, but I can't wait to see that kind of stuff with 19, 20-year-old kids.
Power 5 believes in establishing a certification office within the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, that would license and regulate agents and advisors. They're also going to have the contracts that the athletes enter with both agents and businesses have to be disclosed to the public to help, quote, prevent athletes from acting without sufficient information.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, man.
All right.
I mean,
Well,
they put the analogy in here, I think that's pretty good, is that imagine athletic compensation as a football field. One end zone represents a full-fledged open market without restrictions. The other end zone, a closed system of uncompensated labor. Amid the gulf between them, the NCAA moving only so far from the latter system, according to the summary of the legislation. So, I mean,
I mean, when you think about
man, you can't have this thing just be full bore. I mean, Marvin and Tamorrion got to crawl so that Brady Clark can run.
Right. And it would be odd to go from what we've known about this whole system for all of its existence. And part of the amateurism is a sham. Don't get me wrong. But to go from what we've known our whole lives to all of a sudden just complete, utter, unrestricted money everywhere. You get it, that would just be to me anyway. You can't do that. Let's like you said, crawl and then walk and then run. But you can't expect the NCAA to just be like, all right, here you go, have at it, guys. Whatever you want to do. We won't even watch. That's just not how this corporation has ever been set up. It's not. However, it's not how it does business, and it would be insane for them for people to think that the NCAA would just jump to that. Like, yep, do whatever you want. It's unfettered. I don't see that happening. You have to have some restrictions. But I would like it to be started very quickly because, again, I don't know what the timetable is, but it would be really nice if the college football players that are playing this year, like a Marvin Wilson, they could be compensated this year. I'm talking about specifically 2020 because of what they're having to endure, what they might endure, what they're going through to get on the football fields. It'd be nice if they could get a little something to wet their beak. They could wet their beak a little bit.
There you go. Nice one. I can't believe that was like Brady Clark in 20 years, man. More like what? Like 7 years? 6 years?
Yeah, Brady Clark's going into the 7th grade, man. So 6 years. 6 years. He's going to be a really hot commodity. Again, we don't know what sport he's going to concentrate on, but imagine a 5'8 and a half, 5'9", athletically limited point guard. What's going to be the going rate for those guys that aren't good enough to play high school basketball but go to college? There's a lot of stuff out there, man. There's a lot of stuff out there. He might be a great baseball player. We don't know yet. But if he's good at anything, he's going to be paid handsomely for it. You know that, Aslan. You know how we roll.
Didn't Scottie Pippen grow like 5 inches like between his sophomore and junior year at whatever, Central Arkansas?
Central Arkansas. He did grow a lot. I don't know if it was that. Man, that's crazy. You hear those stories. You know, I heard a story. I was listening to Rex Chapman was on a podcast. And do you remember Rex Chapman? Did you ever watch him play?
Yeah.
He was
Kentucky,
like a super duper star. Yeah, at Kentucky. I mean, imagine a white guy at Kentucky that played like him. Like he was like, he was a high riser. I mean, he was a great athlete. And he said between his freshman and the summer between his freshman and sophomore year of high school, he grew 7 inches.
How did he
in
sleep?
3 months?
How did he sleep with all those growing pains in the middle of the night?
Yeah, exactly. 7 inches in 3 months. It's like, I wonder if he actually looked at himself in the mirror and saw himself growing. Like literally like, yep, I just moved up a notch. I see it. Like that's incredible. So you hear those stories. So there's still a chance Brady could be 6'6". I mean, it's got to start soon though, I guess.
That reminds me of like when I played, I think the first year of like organized soccer. I think I wore I was like 8 years old. I wore like a size 4 shoe. And then the very next season, like I go back out to practice wearing the same cleats. And like the next morning, and my mom's a nurse, right? So you only miss school in my house if you're running like a major fever, like or vomiting, right. Projectile. Otherwise, like you get up and you go to school. Like I could not.
So it had to be projectile.
Yeah.
If you were just regular vomiting, you were going to school.
Yeah. You can run and get to a toilet. It's fine. You just don't want to be hitting anybody, splashing, debris. But right. I remember waking up and I was like, Mom, like I cannot even walk. Like my feet hurt so bad. And like my toes were bruised up. Anyhow, we would go to the shoe store like the next day and they measured me up for a shoe and I went up to like a 7. Like I went like through a whole hour and a half soccer practice with shoes that were 3 sizes too small for me. But for some reason, it really didn't bother me all that much until the next night.
The human body is an amazing thing, Aslan.
It adapts.
Yep, it does.
We've tried to adapt to the barren wasteland of sports news that's out there. That's about all I got. Got any funny stories you want to share? I didn't even get to watch Yellowstone. It's TiVoing right now because I don't want to sit through the 7 minutes of commercials, which again, we've parsed down on the commercial breaks on YouTube. If you appreciate that, hit the like button. Also pay some tribute to one Corey Clark, rattling cages, getting things done. Let me ask you this on our way out, Corey. Somebody copied me on this tweet. Apparently ESPN I don't know, celebrate maybe an anniversary or just the fact that they're going to have to pipe in noise for these games that they're telecasting. We're asking people to submit their favorite hype hits, like 3 songs that get them hype. And a man by the name of Jake on Twitter copied me on a tweet from Maria Taylor of ESPN fame. Her top 3 hype songs. The first one is Swag Surfing. And number 2 is Nuck If You Buck.
Oh my God!
Does the third one even really matter? And it doesn't.
It doesn't. What I get it. What is it? The Florida State fight song?
Oh, the FSU rag. Hard Into Paint by Waka Flocka.
Okay. What's yours? Do you have them?
Mine was going to be Seosin, It's Far Better to Learn, which actually was the song that I played on the Friday podcast before the Virginia Tech opener. It was like, this is what I'm going to christen the Taggart era with, and things went terribly sideways. I probably would say the band Strung Out, they have a song, it's all one word, it's called West Coast Trend Kill. Just really aggressive. And then I would throw in Tupac, and some people might be like, oh, Hit 'Em Up, so basic. No. Tupac, When We Ride, All Eyes on Me, double disc, album number 2 on there. I think it's track number 5. Those 3 songs. And, I mean, that Tupac song has been out since 95. So, like, do the math. I mean, it's like, 25 freaking years? 25 years. Oh, my gosh. That song still gets me pretty hyped. The other ones are like, 10 and 5 years old. So those are the 3 ones.
Tupac's been gone for a good long while now.
96, man. September
that's
7th,
correct. That's crazy. Why do you know that?
I was a big Tupac guy, man. I was real big into the whole East. Honestly, I'll tell you a real quick embarrassing story. I was so into it that, like how everybody has got those Calvin and Hobbes bumper stickers back in the 90s. Like if you were a Ford guy, you had a Calvin and Hobbes with his like pants dropped down, peeing on like a Chevy logo.
You had Calvin peeing on East Coast rappers?
On a Bad Boy logo. Yeah. That's how into the whole East-West Coast thing I was. Man, I was riding with
the East Coast didn't have any love for Death Row.
They didn't, man. They did not.
The East Coast don't love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg.
You ain't got no love for Dr. Dre?
Yeah, my God.
The East Coast ain't got no love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row. Y'all don't love us. Y'all don't love us.
Yeah, dude, it's like the 95 Vibe Awards. You know who was like a guest presenter in that? And I want to get him on the show. Sam Cassell.
Oh, really?
I was watching it like the other day. I was watching like a replay of it on YouTube, and like one of the like best new artists or something, like Sam Cassell's up there, and it was at Madison Square Garden, and I'm like, well, I mean, Sam played with the only team I remember him playing were the Rockets and the Clippers.
Well, he was like, that was his third. I mean, I guess he was an NBA champion, so he was kind of famous.
Yeah,
but he wasn't like when you thought of mid-90s basketball players. Sam Cassell wasn't the first one to come to mind. He wouldn't be the third or fourth one on the Rockets you would think of. So good for him, man. I think he did date Madonna, though, for like a brief second.
No. Really?
I'm almost positive he did. So maybe that's how he got his foot in the door. Man, that was 95, huh? That was 95?
I think, yeah. Vibe Awards. Or Source. Was it Source Awards or the Vibe Awards? I think it's the Source Awards.
I think it was the Source Awards.
Yeah, Source Awards.
Yeah. Oh, well.
What about you? What are your 3 hype hits, Corey? Like when you really got it, when you know you really got to crank it up and get on Brady to push him to excellence. What are the songs that you're like bumping in? And real quick, it's like the first result. Let me see here. I see the Rockets. Anything about Madonna came up on here. The report also intimated that Cassell was Madonna's latest NBA companion. Following the footsteps of Dennis Rodman, Cassell laughed at the story. She's a celebrity. I just wanted to talk to her and meet her. I did briefly. Now they say I'm dating her. That's crazy, but I guess that's New York for you.
There you go. Well, that's a non-denial denial.
Look at you, man. What don't you know
buddy.
in Florida State, man? I love it.
Come on, buddy. I keep up with all of it. I would say Rage Against the Machine.
Ooh, Bulls on Parade.
Killing in the Name.
Okay.
Killing in the Name.
Okay.
That's my one. Just that part at the end.
Yeah.
That's a good like hype up song.
Absolutely.
And then the other one's probably True Colors by Lauper is a good one. You've heard that, right? Cyndi Lauper. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good jam. And then anything by Duran. Those are my 3.
Rio or like Hungry Like the Wolf?
Hey, man, it doesn't matter. Hey, little trivia about Duran. We can leave on this note. This is the oddest. It's probably the oddest little note of any famous band ever. I don't know that you could come up with anything goofier. They had 3 dudes in their band with the last name Taylor, and none of them were related.
That's why this is the best sports podcast out there.
Right. Hey, man, you're getting it all. They already got enough sports with Ira. Now we're talking about Source Awards and Madonna and Duran.
This is part of a complete breakfast, man. This is part of a balanced diet, man. A little bit of everything. We'll be back Tuesday, most likely. Corey and I will hammer it out. We'll post it over on warchant.com. We'll do another live show and then adapt it into a podcast. Wednesday night, live recruiting chat on YouTube with Michael Langston. And Friday, we'll be doing a live happy hour on YouTube. Us 2, Ira, and Gene as well. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's happening, man. I mean, we're just, batting the hatches, full speed ahead, man. We're hoping that a football season lies in the not-too-distant future. So do stay connected with us as well as warchant.com. Again, if you're listening to this on YouTube and you made it this far, just hit the like button, please. He's Corey, the Maslon. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's Indescribably Good.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.